What would you do if you woke up chained inside a soundproof trailer, surrounded by torture devices, with no way out? This wasn't a horror movie. This was the reality inside David Parker Ray's toy box. A place where screams echoed only in silence, and hope faded into endless agony. Investigators would later call him one of the most dangerous sexual predators in American history. Yet most people have never even heard his name. How does a man build a chamber of horrors, abduct women, and keep it hidden for years? And the most disturbing part, we may never know how many victims there really were. In the dead of night, on March 19th, 1999, Cynthia Vigil felt the cold metal of handcuffs snap around her wrists. She had been standing in a dimly lit parking lot in Albuquerque, New Mexico, trying to make ends meet in a world that had already beaten her down. A man approached, flashing what looked like a badge, accusing her of solicitation. Before she could protest, he dragged her into his red pickup truck with a camper shell. Her heart pounded as the vehicle sped south toward the vast, unforgiving desert. Little did she know, she was heading straight into the lair of a monster who had perfected the art of terror over decades. As the truck rumbled along the empty highway, Cynthia's mind raced with fear and regret. She had always been cautious, but tonight, desperation had clouded her judgment. The man, David Parker Ray, drove in silence, his face expressionless under the faint glow of the dashboard lights. When they arrived at a remote trailer park near Elephant Butte Lake, he forced her inside a nondescript semi-trailer park behind his modest home. The door sealed shut with a heavy thud, and the world outside vanished. Cynthia awoke strapped to a gynecological table, her body exposed and vulnerable. Chains bit into her skin, and a dog collar choked her neck. The air was thick with the metallic scent of fear. Then, a voice crackled from a speaker, a pre-recorded tape, calm and methodical, explaining her new reality. "You are now my sex slave," it said. "You will be tortured, raped, and used for my pleasure. If you know too much, you will disappear forever." Her screams filled the trailer, but no one heard them. The walls were soundproofed, designed to swallow every cry. For 3 endless days, Cynthia endured unimaginable pain. Electric shocks coursed through her body, whips cracked against her flesh, and surgical instruments invaded her most private spaces. Ray and his girlfriend, Cindy Hendy, took turns, their eyes gleaming with sadistic delight. Cynthia's mind fractured under the assault, but a spark of defiance remained. She thought of her family, of the life she still wanted to live. But as the torture intensified, she wondered if she would ever see daylight again. What happened next would shatter the illusion of a quiet desert town and expose a darkness that had lurked for years. Elephant Butte, New Mexico, was a place where the sun scorched the earth and secrets buried themselves in the sand. Nestled beside a shimmering reservoir that drew tourists for fishing and boating, the town of Truth or Consequences, often just called T or C, seemed like a sleepy oasis in the Chihuahuan Desert. Population hovered around 6,000, mostly retirees and locals scraping by in the isolation. The vast emptiness stretched for miles, with rugged mountains framing the horizon and coyotes howling under starlit skies. It was the kind of place where neighbors waved but didn't pry, where the wind whispered forgotten stories across the dunes. David Parker Ray blended seamlessly into this backdrop. Born in 1939 in nearby Belen, he had lived much of his life in the shadows of these deserts. By the 1990s, he was a 59-year-old mechanic, working as a maintenance man for the New Mexico Parks Department. Tall and lanky, with a mustache and glasses that gave him a scholarly air, Ray fixed boats and RVs at the state park, earning a reputation as reliable and quiet. He lived in a modest, double-wide trailer on Bass Road, overlooking Elephant Butte Lake, with his dogs and a collection of vehicles scattered around the property. To the outside world, he was just another desert dweller, perhaps a bit eccentric, but harmless. But behind the facade, Ray harbored a double life that festered like a wound in the heat. He had been married multiple times, fathering children, but his relationships were marked by control and violence. Neighbors occasionally heard odd noises from his property, bangs and whirs from his workshop, but dismissed them as tinkering. No one suspected that inside a 25-foot cargo trailer he had parked on his land, Ray was constructing something unimaginable. He spent over $100,000 customizing it, installing soundproof panels, chains bolted to the floor, and an array of devices that turned it into a mobile dungeon. The desert's isolation was perfect for his purposes. Miles from the nearest town, with no cell service and endless places to hide evidence, it allowed Ray to operate undetected. He would cruise the highways or Albuquerque streets, targeting vulnerable women, sex workers, hitchhikers, those down on their luck. His truck became a trap, luring them in with false promises or authority. Once inside the toy box, their world shrank to pain and despair. As the sun set over the lake, casting long shadows across the sand, Ray's secrets remained buried. Friends described him as odd, with a fascination for bondage magazines and strange gadgets, but they laughed it off. Little did they know, his nightmare was just beginning to unravel. The desert held its breath, waiting for one woman's courage to expose the truth. David Parker Ray's darkness took root early, in a childhood scarred by violence and neglect. Born to an alcoholic father who beat him and a mother who abandoned the family, Ray and his sister Peggy were sent to live with their strict grandparents on a remote ranch in Mountain Air, New Mexico. The grandfather enforced discipline with a belt, while Ray's father sporadically visited, bringing magazines filled with images of bound women and sadomasochistic acts. By age 14, Ray was drawing his own fantasies, women in chains, tortured and helpless. His sister discovered the sketches and pornography hidden in his room, leading to a rift that never healed. Bullied at school for his shyness around girls, Ray retreated into a world of dark imagination. He later claimed his first rape occurred as a teenager, tying a woman to a tree and assaulting her. By 1957, at 18, he allegedly committed his first murder, though no evidence ever surfaced. After high school, Ray joined the U.S. Army, serving as a mechanic and honing skills in electronics and construction that he would later twist into tools of torment. Discharged honorably, he drifted through jobs and marriages, fathering a daughter, Glenda Jean Jessie Ray, who would tragically become entangled in his web. Ray's fascination with control deepened over the years. He experimented with BDSM, but it crossed into criminality. In the 1980s, he began abducting women, refining his methods. He met Cindy Hindy in 1997, a woman fleeing charges in Washington state for theft and drugs. They bonded over shared violent fantasies, and she moved into his trailer, becoming his eager accomplice. Hindy, with her own troubled past, assisted in luring victims and participating in the acts, her loyalty fueled by fear and infatuation. Jessie Ray, now an adult, knew fragments of her father's secrets. In 1986, she anonymously tipped the FBI, claiming he was abducting and torturing women, even selling them in Mexico. But the tip was vague, and no action followed. Friends noticed Ray's oddities, his collection of surgical tools, his reclusive nature, but chalked it up to eccentricity. He blended in, attending barbecues and fixing neighbors' cars, all while building his toy box in secret. The emotional toll on those around him was subtle but profound. Jessie struggled with the knowledge, torn between loyalty and horror. Hindy's involvement deepened her own scars, turning her into a monster shadow. Ray's calm demeanor masked a predator's hunger, his eyes hiding the storm within. But little did he know, his carefully constructed world was about to crumble under the weight of one survivor's will. The toy box stood like a sentinel of evil on Ray's property, a white cargo trailer, unassuming from the outside, but a labyrinth of suffering within. Ray had soundproofed every inch, lining the walls with acoustic foam and insulation to trap screams inside. Bolted to the floor were chains and pulleys, designed to hoist victims into agonizing positions. A gynecological table dominated the center, equipped with restraints and a mirror on the ceiling so captives could watch their own degradation. Nearby, a fur-lined coffin for sensory deprivation, a pillory for immobilization, and shelves stocked with whips, clamps, leg spreaders, surgical blades, and saws. Ray's ingenuity was chilling. He installed an electrical generator for shocks, syringes for drugging, and even a device he called the head box to disorient victims. The trailer cost him $100,000, a fortune scavenged from his mechanic salary and odd jobs. Drawings on the walls depicted women in torment, with captions like Satan's Den and Bondage Board. But the most terrifying element was the audio tapes Ray played upon a victim's awakening, a calm, scripted monologue detailing their fate. "You are here to serve as my sex toy," the voice droned. "You will be tortured with electricity, whipped, and violated in every way. If you resist, the pain will be worse. Many have come before you. Some never left." The tape, recorded in 1993, was meant to break the spirit immediately, instilling hopelessness. Ray explained the drugs he would use, sodium pentothal and phenobarbital, to induce amnesia, ensuring victims remembered little if released. The emotional weight of entering the toy box was crushing. Victims awoke disoriented, the dim red lights casting eerie shadows, the air heavy with the scent of bleach and fear. Ray's tools weren't just for physical pain. They were for psychological domination, stripping away dignity and humanity. Hindi often assisted, her presence adding to the betrayal. Another woman complicit in the horror. As the door sealed shut, the outside world ceased to exist. The desert winds howled unheard, and time blurred into endless cycles of agony. What those women heard when they woke up strapped inside was beyond terrifying. Cynthia Vigil's nightmare began with a flash of a badge and ended in a desperate bid for freedom. Abducted from Albuquerque, she was driven to the toy box, where Ray and Hindi stripped her, collared her like an animal, and chained her to the table. The tape played, its words searing into her soul. Promises of endless violation, threats of death if she didn't comply. Her body trembled as electric currents jolted through her, each shock a lightning bolt of pain. Whips lashed her skin, leaving welts that burned like fire. Ray's hands, cold and methodical, invaded her, while Hindi watched, sometimes joining in with cruel laughter. For 3 days, Cynthia's world was reduced to suffering. She thought of her abusive past, the streets that had hardened her, and clung to a fragile hope. Ray mentioned another young girl he had tortured, his words dripping with glee, fueling Cynthia's resolve. She had to escape, not just for herself, but to stop him. The pain was relentless, needles piercing flesh, clamps tightening until she screamed. Her mind teetered on the edge of madness, emotions swirling, terror, rage, despair. On the 3rd day, Ray left for work, leaving Hindi in charge. Hindi, careless, placed the keys on a table within reach. Cynthia, her hands freed momentarily during a moment of distraction, grabbed them with her feet, inching the table closer. Heart pounding, she unlocked the padlock. Hindi returned, swinging a lamp that cracked against Cynthia's skull. Blood streamed down her face, but adrenaline surged. She seized an ice pick, stabbing Hindi in the neck, and bolted from the trailer. Naked, chained, and bleeding, Cynthia ran through the desert scrub, thorns tearing at her feet. A car passed, but didn't stop, heightening her panic. She pounded on a mobile home door. An elderly couple pulled her inside, wrapping her in a robe as she sobbed. "They're going to kill me," she gasped. The police arrived, and, as sirens wailed, Cynthia's escape would finally pull back the curtain on a secret that had been hidden for years. Cynthia's frantic 911 call led authorities straight to Ray's door. Deputies arrived at the Bass Road property, finding Hindi with a stab wound and Ray calmly denying everything. But Cynthia's detailed account, the collar, the chains, the tape, prompted a search warrant. On March 22, 1999, investigators breached the toy box, their faces paling at the sight. "It was like walking into hell," one later said. Restraints dangled from the ceiling, blood-stained tools lay scattered, and journals chronicled atrocities in Ray's neat handwriting. Evidence piled up. Videotapes showing assaults, including one of Kelly Garrett from 1996, whom Ray had drugged into amnesia. Disturbing photos of bound women. And the infamous audio tapes. Angelica Montano, another survivor, came forward. She had been abducted earlier, tortured, and released, but her report was ignored. The FBI joined, excavating the property and lake, but no bodies surfaced. Hindi, under interrogation, cracked, implicating Ray in dozens of abductions and naming accomplices, Jesse Ray and Dennis Yancey. Yancey confessed to strangling Marie Parker in 1997 on Ray's orders. Her body dumped in a ravine, but never found. Jesse was arrested for aiding in kidnappings. Ray's journals hinted at up to 60 victims since the 1950s, describing drugging, tortures, and disposals in the desert. But the deeper they looked, the more horrifying the picture became. Ray boasted in his tapes and journals of over 40 to 60 victims, a number that chilled investigators to the bone. "I've been doing this for decades," he claimed, detailing how he targeted transients and sex workers, women society overlooked. The desert's vastness made disposal easy. Bodies could vanish under sand or in remote canyons, scavenged by animals. No confirmed murders, but suspicions lingered. Marie Parker, 22, disappeared in 1997. Yancey admitted killing her for Ray. Jill Troya, 22, vanished in 1995 after being seen with Jesse Ray. Ray's journal described an Asian woman, matching her. Angelica Montano died in 2001 from pneumonia, her trauma unresolved. Kelly Garrett survived, but suffered amnesia and a suicide attempt, her life shattered. Families of missing women, like those of Connie, an 18-year-old allegedly killed in 1995, grappled with grief, wondering if Ray was responsible. The emotional void was profound. Mothers clinging to photos, siblings haunted by what-ifs. Searches yielded jewelry and clothes, possible trophies, but no closure. And here's the disturbing truth. He may have gotten away with far more than anyone can prove. The trials unfolded in a tense courtroom in Tierra Amarilla, New Mexico, starting in 2000. Ray faced charges of kidnapping, rape, and torture against Vigil, Montano, and Garrett. Survivors testified through tears. Cynthia recounted her escape, her voice breaking. Kelly described fragmented memories of horror. Ray's defense claimed fantasy role play, but the evidence, tapes, tools, journals, overwhelmed. A mistrial in Garrett's case due to juror skepticism led to a retrial and conviction on all 12 counts. In 2001, Ray pleaded guilty to spare Jesse, receiving 224 years. Hindi, pleading guilty, got 36 years, released in 2019. Jesse served 2.5 years. Yancey, 30 years for murder, paroled in 2010, but reincarcerated until 2021. Justice fell hollow. No murder charges, despite suspicions. Ray's heart attack on May 28, 2002, ended his sentence after months served. Families wept for lost answers. Even in death, David Parker Ray kept his darkest secrets buried. The scars Ray left ran deep, etching trauma into survivors' souls. Cynthia Vigil Jaramillo channeled her pain into advocacy, founding Street Safe New Mexico to protect vulnerable women. Her resilience a beacon amid the darkness. Kelly Garrett rebuilt her life, but nightmares lingered, a constant reminder of stolen innocence. Families of the missing endured endless agony, their loved ones' ghosts in the desert winds. Ray's crimes faded from headlines, too grotesque for mainstream news, yet they exposed society's blind spots. Overlooked victims, ignored tips. His toy box became a symbol of hidden evil, a warning that monsters walk among us. Do you think David Parker Ray was America's most dangerous predator, or just one of many monsters still hidden in the shadows? If this story shocked you, hit the like button, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. How many victims do you think he really had?